Alright, welcome back to West of Loathing. I have made myself some tea, given it just enough time to cool down. Nice, perfect temperature, and it's time to argue a case about gun law. Or, no, it's just a case about law. It's just guns are associated, because, you know, it's the West. And try and convince this woman that her client, who she was defending, was in fact guilty and she can pass on to the afterlife. I realized I don't know if I hope I'm gonna have the stats for this. I have no idea what it's gonna require or what the outcome is if I don't make that, but I guess we'll find out. Alright, tell me about the case. My defendant was Matthew Guilty McCready, accused of the murder of Victor Vic Timsbury at noon on June 18th, 1878 in Reno. I have some questions. Your client was actually named guilty? Come on. Names don't mean anything. I once had a client named Ike. I killed the guy and he was totally innocent. For someone's actual legal name, sure, but nicknames are usually given with some sort of basis. You've never met a really tall guy called Tiny or a fat guy called Slim? Arguably, the nickname Guilty would reinforce my client's innocence. That's totally absurd, but I'll let it rest for now. What was the cause of death? Timsbury was shot through the heart with a .45 caliber revolver. And did McCready own such a gun? Yes, he was holding it at the time, and subsequent examination showed that it had been recently fired. Are you messing with me? Any further questions? Yes, I have some more questions, yeah. This was at noon precisely? Yes, that was confirmed by witnesses. Also, McCready owned a fancy pocket watch that chimed on the hours. I don't think that's a thing that ever existed. I don't know, maybe there's a fascinating history behind pocket watches and not losing time. It's a whole area of exploration that I've admittedly spent far too much time on long time ago learning about. I've never seen a pocket watch with a chime in it that wasn't like a modern thing, you know, made with machines. But anyway, that's not the point. There were witnesses, about half a dozen of them. I'm pretty sure there's something you aren't telling me. I'm not obligated to play my hand face up, Mr. Prosecutor. Actually, you are. During discovery, you have to give me all the information you have. Hang on a second. Shot with a pistol in front of witnesses at exactly noon? Was this a duel? So you can add 2 + 2 after all. Well done. Well, as luck would have it, I've just recently read a whole book about duel law. What? Why? No reason, I just happened across it in the library and thought it might be interesting. You read an entire code of law you found at random just for the heck of it. Yep. Let me just do a quick review. A duel is legal, provided it's between exactly 2 people at a specified prearranged time and place using the same or at least essentially similar weapons. And they have to either face each other down and quick draw at the appointed moment or do the 10 paces turn and fire routine. Is that right? That's the gist of it, yes. So I guess let's start with you telling me the facts of the case, and I'll interrupt you rudely if I have questions. Alright, but if you push me on trivial nonsense, I'll get mad and you'll have to start over. Alright, that seems fair. Go ahead. McCready and Timsbury got into an argument in a saloon on the evening of June 17th. Apparently, Timsbury accused McCready of cheating at poker. I have some questions. I am going to pester her with nonsense. What was the name of the saloon? The Two-Headed Horse. Weird. Did they have one? Oh, that's not helpful, man. Come on. No, I think the proprietor was going for a sort of double entendre, but it doesn't really work. Huh. No, it really doesn't. Two-headed spider, maybe, but anyway, do you have any other questions? Do you have other questions? Or can we get on with this? What day of the week was this? Monday. Monday, June 17th, 1878. Well, that makes sense. Everyone's a bit grumpy on a Monday. Uh-huh. They should make the weekend Sunday and Monday instead. Then you could spend Monday relaxing instead of having to go to work. But then, whatever. Do you have any other questions? Tell me more about the argument. There isn't much to tell. The other players in the game had already folded their hands in that round, so they weren't paying very close attention. All we know is that Timsbury suddenly accused McCready of being a dirty, cheat environment. McCready said Timsbury was just sore because he'd been losing all night. Did McCready have a history of cheating? He'd been accused of it once or twice before, but Reno's a gambling town and he hung out in the rough part of it. Getting accused of cheating by a sore loser when you're on a lucky streak is par for the course. But if McCready had a history of cheating, it would be irrelevant because the reason for the duel is immaterial to the legality of the duel itself. Motive isn't an issue here. But remember how I warned you about ticking me off with stupid digressions? This is an excellent example. Yeah, I'm going to push it. Objection. This is extremely relevant. If McCready was a habitual cheater, it's likely he would have cheated in the duel as well. And somehow you're going to prove to me that McCready was a habitual poker cheat 17 years after the fact? How exactly do you intend to accomplish that, Mr. Prosecutor? Even if you did somehow pull that off, it would be circumstantial evidence at best. You'd have to prove he cheated in the duel itself. In front of witnesses. What form do you imagine this cheating took, pray tell? Mirrors? We're done here. Get out. She shoves you out of the gallery and slams the door. Well, that was fun anyway. Okay, let's get to back where we were. Okay, what happened next? The bartender yelled at them to take it outside, but since it was dark out, they agreed to meet for a duel the next day. And that would be the 18th, you said. Yes, June 18th, 1878. I have a question. Did they set a specific time for the duel? Yes, high noon. Figures. Why is it always high noon? Tradition, I suppose, and since the sun is at its highest in the sky, everything's brightly lit and there aren't many shadows, so that it's good for gunfighting. Yeah, I guess. Makes sense. Plus you can have a duel on your lunch break. Yeah, we'll keep pushing this. Why didn't they just fight right then? Because it was dark. You can't have a gunfight in the dark. No, I get that, but they could have just had a regular old fist fight. They were mad enough to shoot each other to death, but not punch each other? Well, without getting too psychoanalytical, these guys were gunfighters. I mean, they counted that as a significant part of their identity. Fighting without guns is just Fighting without guns was not just outside their wheelhouse. They considered it a waste of their time and talents, like asking a fancy French chef to make you a grilled cheese sandwich. Why didn't they just not fight? What? Well, a fight breaks out in the heat of the moment, that's one thing. But they cool off enough to schedule a meeting for the next day and still go through with it? A card game is a heck of a thing to get killed over. It's an honor thing, I suppose, that and they were each confident that they wouldn't be the one getting killed. Yes, it's dumb, but also extremely immaterial. Toxic definitions of masculinity and the general lawlessness of the frontier are not what's on trial here. What happened next? Well, the next day they both showed up shortly before noon and squared off about 30 feet from each other. When noon struck, McCready fired, fast enough that Timsbury didn't get his shot off, on account of having his head shot off. That's pretty much the long and short of it. I'm gonna have to ask for some more details on that. What weapons were they using? McCready had a .45 caliber single-action Army revolver. Timsbury had an older Model 36 cap and ball Navy revolver. which he loaded with paper cartridges instead of packing the gunpowder by hand. See, this is what I was talking about just a little while ago. They were, you know, having brass cased self-contained bullets was not always the case. Objection: those are significantly different weapons. Are you kidding me? They're both pistols. A modern cartridge revolver versus an antique cap and ball loader? Ridiculous. Yeah, like I said a couple of episodes ago now, the difference in velocities between between smokeless and traditional black powder is significantly different. So, like, if nothing else, one of those bullets is probably the modern cartridge is probably supersonic, and the cap and ball is almost assuredly subsonic. I don't actually know what, if any, supersonic black powder rounds there were. I'm sure theoretically it's possible to do. The amount of velocity you get out of it is so much smaller. And like I said, paper cartridge with built-in wadding and stuff. And in a lot of those cases, well, let's see. Loaded with paper cartridges and packing the gunpowder by hand. Right, so in traditional older revolvers, you would have either just poured black powder into the cylinder that you had measured out, or put it in with a like piece of paper wrapped around it, basically, and then you just jam the ball in there, the bullet, which, because it was made out of lead, would basically, it was a little bit too large for the cylinder, and it would just jam in the front of the cylinder, which would basically seal it enough to get it to fire. Interestingly, this also has other side effects, I've learned. There's a thing called a chain fire, where basically if you were if your bullets were not round enough, or you were just bad at loading your stuff up, you could basically set off all of the bullets in all of the chambers at once, because you'd fire one, and then all of the black powder would explode, leak out, the flames would like lick around the rest of the cylinder, because it's a very imprecise thing. You're just shoving a lead ball in there. And if those other cylinders weren't sealed, the flames, the heat, would get into the other cylinders and set them off too. And they don't have any other, they don't have anything containing them other than, you know, the cylinder. So they would often explode catastrophically, potentially, you know, almost assuredly destroying the gun, and very likely hurting you at the very least. Anyway, piece of trivia nobody cared about. Anyway, I think it's fascinating. A modern cartridge revolver versus an antique cap and ball loader? Ridiculous. That antique was in production until 1873 and was considered one of the most reliable and popular six-shooters in the territories. Furthermore, the restriction against differing weapons in a duel is about pistols versus rifles, or the proverbial knife in a gunfight. Or, as a more recent example, a nitwit trying to argue the law against a professional attorney. No, I disagree. I mean, yes, the cap and ball Navy revolver was an extremely popular pistol that was made in huge quantities. But yeah, like caliber, velocity, and, you know, these other side effects that could be had from not using a cartridge. Like, Alright, well, apparently that was enough for her to kick me out again. Fine. I don't know if I need to ask all of these. What weapons? Let me ask you something else. Okay, so I think she only kicks me out if I put an objection out that she finds objectionable. He fired at exactly noon? Yes, as soon as the church bells started ringing. You also mentioned MacCready's pocket watch. Yes, he had a fancy pocket watch that chimed on the hour. Is that important for some reason? I mean, yeah, if he shot when if his watch was not accurate. Objection, MacCready was cheating. MacCready had been accused of cheating in the past, and this time he was. What are you talking about? All he had to do was set his watch a few seconds early. That doesn't make any sense. He didn't shoot early. He shot when the church bells rang. That's verified by witness testimony. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he used the watch to warn him when the church bells were about to ring. A 5-second get-ready alert would have given him a huge advantage in reaction time. What do you say to that, counselor? You know, I'll give you that one. That's not bad. There's just 2 problems with that argument. Oh, what? Firstly, you're just guessing. You have no evidence. And secondly, even if MacCready was using that trick, which he may well have been, he was pretty clever. It wouldn't be illegal. What? There's nothing in duel law prohibiting the use of minor strategies like that. So as long as MacCready didn't fire before the appointed time, it's all above board. Nice try, Mr. Prosecutor, but I think you'd better go think about this case a bit more before trying again. It is interesting because, you know, she does make a good point. If I'm the prosecution, I need to... If this is a criminal prosecution, then under U.S. law, I have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So, let's see. More details. Weapons were they using? Witnesses. Oh, here we go. You said there were witnesses, about half a dozen of them, watching from across the street or peeking through half-open shutters. Were they interviewed? Yes, and their stories lined up with what I just told you. Are any of them known associates of MacCready? I'm not aware of any of them being actual friends with MacCready, but he was a local and a lot of people knew him. She gives you a suspicious look. Wait a minute. Just where are you going with... I have no idea what I'm objecting to, but I'm going to. Objection. Oh, come on. Any one of those people could have interceded on MacCready's behalf. What? And done what, exactly? Well, they could have shot Timsfield with a more accurate weapon, like a rifle, or... Then they'd have been 2 gunshots instead of just 1. Or are you suggesting they shot him with a poison blowgun dart? Well, couple of things here. One... There were pistol caliber rifles available at the time. In fact, they were fairly common. So there were plenty of rifles that are loaded in .45. And if he knew that somebody was helping him, which he would have, this would have been premeditated, presumably, then he could have, you know, as long as they both shot when it struck noon, he could have, well, actually, no, now that I think about it, the timing is kind of the problem. Because the other gunshot would have had to come slightly early, presumably. Unless it was silenced, which is kind of a whole thing with the silenter that I'm working on building. But, like, shooting him with another gun in the same caliber... They're not doing forensic analysis of the cartridges or anything in this time period. So they could have, could have been shot with a rifle from far off at approximately the same time. And then he could have intentionally missed his shot. Well, was he tested for poison? Get out. She shoves you out of the gallery and slams the door. Alright, let me ask about everything, because it looks like I'm at a dead end. Okay. Day of the week. Tell me about the argument. McCready had a history of cheating. I have another question. Go on, I have a question. Fight right then. Set a specific time for the duel. So McCready fired as soon as the church bell struck noon. Yes, that's what I just said. Have you got a point to make, or are you just stalling for time to think? Witnesses, known associates. Okay, I think I'm out of things I can do here, so I'm gonna have to come back. I still don't know what this one's about. Unless it's just a joke, but... Huh. Alright. I guess I'm gonna have to come back to that one with more information. Unless I can get something out of the library? Kinda doubt it, though. Alright. Well, we'll come back.